Hey everybody. Even though it's up on Classroom, what I'm going to be talking about today is Jamboard. It's a phenomenal tool that I think, as simplistic as it is, actually can do a lot of things, especially in engaging your students and trying to get discussions going, things like that. So what I want to remind people is that it's in your Google Apps. So up top in the top right-hand corner, you're going to go to the waffle or the grid. And I just want to remind you guys that, I've pulled mine up here. Yours might be down further, but you can always click on these, hold on to them, and drag them to where you want. So if it's down a little bit further and you want to drag it up, you can do that. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Jamboard. You can see I've been using it quite a bit. I created this one today just to practice, but if you're in here for the first time, you can go ahead and just go down to the bottom right-hand corner. You'll see the plus symbol for new jam. So you'd click on that and it would start a new jam for you. So a couple of things about Jamboard, which are really neat. So I clicked on this one. I've gone ahead and pre-created some slides in here, okay, so that you can see different ways to use it. When you get it, up here, it'll just say 1 out of 1. And then as you click these over, it'll create the next frame for you. The most basic use of Jamboard is to use it as a whiteboard. So I've left this one blank so that you can see a couple of things. Number one, you can choose to change the background. So you can have just white. You can put in dots. You can put in lines, grids, a gray grid background, blue, or black if you want things to stand out. So I'll keep it on white. That's fine for right now. And then you have these really simple tools over here. So you have a pen, but this is going to, it's going to expand out. So you have some other tools in here too for writing. You've got also a marker, a highlighter, or a brush, and you've got these 6 colors, okay? You can use your mouse just to write on the screen like that. So you can play around with it. You can see the highlighter, okay, things like that. You also have an eraser, okay, which you can go in and erase specific things. You have a pointer, so if you're just pointing to things or you need to click on things in here, you would go back to the pointer so you can select the tools. There are sticky notes that you can add in. So once you click it, you can choose the color. You can have no color if you want, okay? And you just simply type in whatever you want. When you hit save or enter, okay, it's going to put it onto your Jamboard, okay, which you saw it go up right here. It'll keep this up, but if you don't want to add any other sticky notes other than the one you just did, you would hit cancel. You also can add in pictures. So you can either pull things from your Google Drive or photos that you've saved. You can upload from your computer, or you can just simply Google image search. So if I click there and I type in cat, great, I can pick the one that I like the most. I like this guy. I click on it, and then down here in the bottom left-hand corner of this box, you just hit select. It'll go in there, okay? And then you also have a laser pointer. So I can point to things if I was working with students, and I can circle things, but it doesn't keep it on the screen. It's just for you to point things out, like look at his cute face, okay? So those are your tools over here, all right? Now, I'm gonna go back to the select tool. And what I want you to know about your sticky notes is you can move them around, all right? You can make them bigger. You can rotate them, okay? And you can always go back in with the 3 dots and you can edit them, duplicate them, or delete them, okay? Let's say I decide I wanted to make this a color. I want to make it orange to match the cat. I can just hit edit. I can click orange, save it, all right? The thing about the pictures, okay, so I'm still on my select tool, is I can also select the pictures and do the same thing. I can resize it. I can spin it around whatever direction I want. The 3 dots, I can duplicate it or I can delete it. I can't edit the photo, okay, inside of Jamboard. So you've got this, and what I've been using this for is I've been in Google Meet, and I would then share my screen and have a Jamboard up so that I could use it as a whiteboard. So as students had questions, I could answer their questions. If you have a touchscreen, you can also use a stylus pen. Okay, so I'm going to put it back on pen, or you can use your finger if you have a touchscreen. So I can type it in, I guess it's not typing in, I can write in hello. All right, now it's much better if you can do it with a stylus pen than with your finger, but you can see you can get the point across. So if students have a quick question, like what is 2 plus 2? Let's take a look at that. Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, it's 4, right? So I can easily and quickly write out things without having to type them out, especially on, I know for math, doing mathematical equations, sometimes it would just be easier to use your finger and write it out, so that you can add in all those mathematical symbols without having to figure out how to type those in. So that's your basic whiteboard function, okay? There are other ways that you can use this. So again, I would use the whiteboard function when I was presenting in Google Meet. I would share my screen or present my screen, and I would just pull up the Jamboard and then my kids could see it. I will tell you that the updates that are coming out for Google Meet, it looks like they're going to be incorporating Jamboard into Google Meet, so you will automatically have that whiteboard function. All right, a couple other ways to use Jamboard. All right, so you can pre-make them. So what I've done here is, let's say I was doing this for Spanish, you can pre-make a Jamboard and then assign it to kids in Google Classroom, just like you would a doc or Google Slides. Or you can just pre-make them and then do it with the students all together. So this would be one where I would probably just ask them to do it on their own. And I put in directions. I'm asking what time is it? I've put 3 clocks. And again, I just imported them from here. I just typed in clock. And it came up, and I can pick any clock I want. And there you can see I have tons of options, right? You can even get more specific. You can put in analog clock so that only analog clocks come up, okay? So it's completely up to you. And then I just put answer choices in here. And in the directions, I told them, you can match the times, or I want you to match the times to the clock. You can do this by drawing a line, or you can do this by moving the sticky notes under the clock they belong to. So we're going to first just try drawing it. So again, I use my select tool, I grab my pen, I click on that, I can choose my color if I want to. I'm just going to stick with the black. So what I can do is I can, as a student, I can look for this and say, okay, son las 11 menos 18. Okay, I got to find this one. Yep, it's right here. And I can just draw a line to it. I can even, as a student, if I wanted to, then choose a different color for the next one to make sure my teacher knows, right? So I could say, son las 4:07, right here, okay? The other thing you can do is you can have your students move things, all right? So if I didn't want them to draw, and one thing, we do have the eraser right here, but we also have the back button. So it'll undo your very last thing that you just did. So I can undo that blue line by clicking undo. I can undo the black line now because it's the second to last thing I just did. Okay, so if they're choosing to move things, they would be on the select and they would just move them next to the ones that they belong to. Okay, so that's also an option. Now, in the next one, okay, if I wanted to do something similar to this, but I didn't want to give them the answers, I wanted them to come up with it, what you can do is you can, if you've already created one, but you want to say like, that might be too easy. Let me go ahead and create a second version with different clocks and we can do that. If you click out, and I don't know if you saw what I just did, but I expanded this frame bar. I just clicked on that little arrow underneath the 2 out of 5, and it shows you all the boards I've set up, all the different frames that I've set up in here. So what I can do is I can go to this one, and I can go to the 3 dots, and I can duplicate. It's going to put it right in there. Let's say I don't want it there. Let's say I want it in front of that one. I can move it, and see now I'm in front, okay? So we're going to go here. We'll just go to the second one. That's fine. And then I'm going to click in and it'll take it away. You can also collapse it by just clicking that arrow. Okay, so then as a teacher, I say, okay, I don't want the answers in there. I want them to be able to write out the answers. So what I would do is I'd set it up like this, and I can come in here and just click in to edit it. And I can say, instead of match, I can say write out these times on a sticky note next to each clock. Okay, so then your students could come in, they could grab a sticky note, make it whatever color they want. They could put son las 10:08, I think was one of them. Yes, I can see it right there. Okay, and they can just drag it next to the clock. So it's that simple. They can resize it, whatever they want to do with it, but they can put the answer there. So that's one way that you can use a Jamboard also. All right, so let's take a look at this one. This is something that I used also for practice in my Spanish classes, is I would take sentences and I would mix them up, and then they would have to go in and put them into the correct order. I also did this with verb endings, okay, and things like that, where they'd have to match up the stem to the ending and then make sure everything was conjugated correctly and then put into a sentence so it translated to what I wanted. So that's another way that you can do it. The last thing that I have for us to, second to last thing that I have for us to look at is you can simply preload it with questions, and you can do this one of two ways. I did it where I assigned to kids where they, through Classroom, they would open up their own version and they would just follow directions, add a sticky note to the frame with your answer. Don't forget to put your first and last name. So they don't necessarily need their first and last name if they're answering it. Nature refers to, this is for my psychology class, they would write out their whole answer. Okay, and then they could put their name on it. Okay, and it would go in there, and then they could drag it and they could put it right here. The other way that you can use this is you can share this. So if this was just my Jamboard with just this frame, I could preload it with questions that I wanted to discuss during my live session with my students, and I could share it with my students by grabbing the link, right? I could copy the link. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to then post it for them so that they can come in, and we're going to take a question at a time. So I'm going to say, okay, guys, we're on what is nature versus nurture. I want everyone to grab a sticky note, and I want you to write out your answers. And what I would tell them was, okay, here's my answer. We'll just be smart about it. Answer. Put your first and last name. Straka. And I would tell them, hold off on hitting save or enter. And what we would do is I'd give everyone about 2 minutes to think and write. And then I'd say, okay, we got about 10 seconds. We got about 5 seconds. Okay, go ahead and hit save or enter. And then their answers would all pop up at the same time. And I'd say, okay, go ahead and take a minute. And I want you to read through everyone's answers. I want you to see where there's commonalities between your answer and their answer, but where are there differences? Are people adding in more detail? Is that detail correct? And then we would discuss it from there. So you can really use it as a jump off point for a discussion. The last way, and I'm glad that other teachers have seen how to use this also, brought up in some of the sessions we've been doing, is just using it as a parking lot for questions. So have a question, put your questions on a sticky note, and I will answer them during our class sessions. It's not important if they put their name, so I just put that. You can if you want, or you can leave it anonymous, up to you. They literally can ask any question. When is our thing due? I don't understand this concept. Do you know when we're not going to be on distance learning anymore, right? Kids have tons of questions, so just giving them the space to ask these questions. Now, couple things that I want to go over in case you have questions just on the logistics of this. I could, inside of this, I could clear the whole frame. So in fact, I'll go back to the whiteboard. If you are using it as a whiteboard and you don't want to create different frames, you could just come in here and this will wipe this whole frame clean. So I could do that, okay? You have options over here to rename it, to download it as a PDF. So when it's all done, to save the frame as an image, to remove it, to make a copy, etc. Okay. What I want to show people though is that you absolutely can. So here, I'll go ahead and write on this, and I'll just say, with my terrible handwriting using my finger, right, that I'm using this as a whiteboard. Okay. You can assign Jamboards into Google Classroom just like you would any other assignment. So I'm going to take you into Classroom and show you that. So here we're in Classroom. This is just my practice one where I just try different things out. I'm going to go ahead and create an assignment, and it's important you do assignment so that they can actually manipulate the slides or the frames themselves. So I'm going to call it practice Jamboard. Okay, and then you put your directions here. And just like any other assignment, you're going to hit add. It's going to come from your Google Drive. And what you're going to do is, most likely it'll come up in recent because you've just done it. So we'll go ahead and click there. If not, you can always search for it in my drive. And we're going to insert. And instead of students just being able to view the file, you make a copy for each student. And then that way they can manipulate it themselves. They can answer any questions you put on there, and then they can turn it in just like an assignment. So if you're doing a jam in one of those cases where you're having them move things around to make a sentence, or you want them to answer different discussion prompts and turn it in, not as a class, but as an individual, this is what you're going to want to do. You can change your points. You can assign it to only a couple of students, right? You can assign it to other classes. You can put a due date. Once you select the due date, you can put a time if you want, okay? You can put it under a topic like assignments. And if you have a rubric, you can do that there, all right? Originality, we do not have access to that right now, so no worries about that. And then you would simply click assign. And it takes a second, but it will come up. There we go. So if we look here, practice Jamboard, and every student has their own copy of this. So I can always look in here, and I can look at, oh, they haven't opened it yet. So because I haven't opened it yet, then you won't be able to see it. But when they go to turn it in, then you'll be able to see their work, and you can grade it from there. Okay, so hopefully that answered some questions about Jamboard. Again, my frames were just different ways that you can use Jamboard. If you're looking to create a Jamboard, you would want to keep it all to one thing. So have a Jamboard as a whiteboard. So for instance, if you look in all my different ones, you can see here where I assigned, so they're going to show up here as well. But where I've just practiced, I've been tutoring this summer, and so I've got some notes that we've been doing here, right? That's just a whiteboard. So I create one for each time, okay? Practice ones, things like that. You can see where we were practicing in Spanish, and they were moving stuff around, conjugating and or translating. So create one for each activity that you're wanting to do. This practice one was just so that you could see the different functions of Jamboard. So if you have any questions, let me know. Hopefully that was helpful.